Politicians in this country now. We are joined by Republican Senator from Florida, George LeMieux. He is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee and met with General McChrystal late last year. If you don't mind, Senator, I'd love for you to jump right in where we just left off, which is the apparent tension or lack thereof. It seems to be a little bit in the eye of the beholder between those who would argue for an aggressive withdrawal next summer and those who would argue that that's not what's actually going to happen. And so you have a civilian political agenda and a strategic military agenda that may not mix.
Well, Dylan, I think you've hit on something that's very important, is really the key going forward. And I see that tension in two ways. First of all, this idea that there's going to be a withdrawal of troops next summer. You have Secretary Clinton and Secretary Gates saying, well, that's just a conditions-based issue and we will evaluate it at the time. And even when I asked General Petraeus about this the last time he was at the Armed Services Committee, he held the right back to say that he would give the president his advice at the time as to whether or not we could do that. But then you have the president and Robert Gibbs, the spokesman, saying, no, it's set in stone. We are pulling troops out that day. That sends a signal to our enemies, to the Taliban, that we're not there to stay for a long period of time. I think it hurts our warfighting efforts.
But even just table that for just a second, not that it's not highly consequential, but if you look at McChrystal's behavior relative to the chain of command, forget whether what your opinion is. It was obviously an extreme exhibition of behavior on the general's part to be willing and the community around him to say what they said and do what they did in that context. Is all of this symptomatic of politicians that want to keep their jobs by telling Americans we're getting out, and military commanders who believe they have a way to achieve an objective, and you can debate whether what the objective should be and what the methods are, but forget that for the moment, that they believe they've got a plan to achieve an objective, and they've got politicians back in D.C. saying things that are directly contrary to how they want to pursue their strategy.
Well, it may be symptomatic of that tension. And I think that the president is going to need to really evaluate the entire team now. You've got General Petraeus coming in to be the leader of our efforts over there. There's no one who I think more highly of in the military than David Petraeus. He will do an excellent job, but he cannot be hamstrung by the diplomatic team that we have over there. And there obviously was tension between Ambassador Eikenberry, who was, had issued that missive that said that he was not in favor of this coin strategy. There's tension with Ambassador Holbrooke. The president needs to take a fresh look at all of that and make sure that Petraeus has the team on the ground to make sure that he can succeed in his effort to win this war. And, make no mistake, David Petraeus is in charge, but we need to have the diplomatic team around him that is going to make sure that we have a successful effort.
New York Times wrote, and this goes back a little bit, but they say, and this is talking about McChrystal and the chain of command, they say, I wish we had generals who remember what it was like when they were down in a platoon, he said to a reporter in the back. Either they have never been in real fighting or they forgot what it's like. This is an anonymous Army sergeant quoted. So again, anonymous quotes like this are to be taken with 7 grains of salt. Sure. But do you get the sense that the connection between the highest levels of our military and our government and the young men and women who are on the ground every day in these countries where we pay them to perpetrate war on our behalf, are they connected?
Well, I think that General McChrystal didn't have that flaw. General McChrystal was out on foot patrols himself with the soldiers, putting himself in harm's way. The problem with General McChrystal, I have a lot of respect for, is he had a huge error of judgment here, allowing that Rolling Stone reporter to be with him for a month's time, saying the things he said, letting others say the things they said. He should have done that, and that's why he had to
but let's not
offer
kid
his
each
resignation.
But am I wrong, Senator, to look at this and say that's not an error in judgment, although, I mean, that's surely it is, but it's more than an error in judgment. That is an indication of just how much tension is in the fault line between the military strategic command and the civilian diplomatic body, that a general with this level of respect and authority has achieved such a level of frustration that, given access to a reporter for that period of time, is going to say all this crazy stuff.
No, I think your comments are very astute, and that's why the president now needs to make sure that he cleans up the diplomatic side of this equation and make sure that the ambassador in Afghanistan and the rest of the diplomatic team are going to work in a way to pursue the objectives that General Petraeus is going to try to achieve with the military.
Understood. Listen, Senator, thanks so much for giving us a slice of the afternoon. It helps all of us when we get the opportunity to talk to people like yourself. So we appreciate it. Again, a busy afternoon of news continues. There's a crazy day. Quick break here.